A night in with MauLer and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen dinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop up the cork, have a glass of wine, plus they'll say I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line before the Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, MauLer and the critical drinker.
Alright, hail to you everybody. Hello chats, here we are.
Hey, it's the bar. This time, we'll go
bar's open.
We just walk in very respectably in suits, just like, yeah, I'm fine. Gonna have a nice little drink, yeah.
I just thinking about that actually. It's been a while since I've worn like a suit and tie and stuff for doing this, so I feel like I need to bring that back. Well, I tell you what, I'll do it next week because it's our 50th, so it seems appropriate. Yeah, I'm gonna mark the occasion.
We have to come up with something real cool and crazy to do for that one.
I know, and I've only got a week to figure it out, so yeah, don't worry, we won't half-ass
we'll figure it out. We got it.
We're well known for our professionalism here on the open bar. But yeah, well, we are here tonight. We have got a bunch of guests in this evening, and lovely stuff to talk about. Unfortunately, Melanie Mack isn't able to join us. She sent me a message about an hour before we were due to go live. She's in the middle of moving house and stuff, and she just hasn't got her stuff set up in time because she needs a man around to sort it out for her. It's all technical stuff. She can't do it. I'm just kidding. But yeah, sadly she won't be able to join us tonight. But we do have a couple of fantastic guests, so I think we should. Well, we got one of them here already, so we should bring him in, I suppose, shouldn't we?
Let's do it.
It's the logical thing to do. We've got Eric July. Hey, man.
What's up? What's up, man? Y'all doing?
It's a pleasure to have you on, mate. Thank you for coming in for this.
Of course. It's always fun.
Yeah, nice one, man. Yeah, we've got Chris Gore, who's also going to be joining us, but he is slightly delayed, so we will bring him in as soon as he arrives. But yeah, we've got enough people to start drinking and ranting about stuff, so I say we just fire right into it. What do you reckon?
Absolutely. Gosh, infinite topic combined with alcohol.
Well, yeah, well, it's always good for ranting about stuff. So, there's a few different things I was going to cover tonight, but the one that it made me chuckle a little bit is the headlines about Disney Plus, right? Because we already know that they shed about 2.4 million subscribers in the previous quarter, and the new results are in for this quarter, the first quarter of this year, and they have lost 4 million subscribers.
Ow.
Good lord, that's brutal. So that's like a grand total of 6.4 million. Now, I will say, a lot of this is due to the cricket rights in India, because obviously it's a massive deal for them out there. They lost the rights, and as a result, a lot of people have left the service. But it's not just that. So there's an article here from Forbes, right? And I'll do them the credit of reading out a little bit of it, just so we get the full picture here. So, Disney's dealing with a lot right now, between the turf war with Governor Ron DeSantis, the writer's strike, and company-wide layoffs that will reach 7,000 worldwide. Ouch. Add to that another concern, the continued subscriber declines for streaming service Disney+. It suffered its second straight quarterly decline during the first 3 months of the year, shedding 4 million subscribers. That's after a 2.4 million drop the previous quarter. Up until then, Disney Plus had never suffered subscriber losses, but more could be ahead as they deal with the fallout from losing the streaming rights for the Indian Premier League cricket games. Now, you might think, well, that's just India, so it's okay in America. They have, however, stopped growing in America, and they've actually lost 300,000 subscribers there. So not only are they not growing, they're now declining in America as well. I wonder what could be causing this. Is it because the products that they're putting out are kind of shit? I don't know.
Good. I love the idea that like there's some guy in some office. It's like, you see, the moment we stopped releasing Mandalorian, Kenobi, and Boba Fett type stuff, they unsubscribed. We need more. Got to get more of them out there.
Yeah, make me more Star Wars shows. God,
just anything, throw them out.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder where this is going to end, man. I mean, if you're losing 4 million subscribers per quarter, How much longer can that go on for? You know, and how can they reverse it? Because, man, I'm drawing a bit of a blank with this one. It seems like Disney's just getting hammered from every direction right now. And not in a good way either.
It feels like there was always going to be a rooftop on just how much streaming was going to do for them. I think that they overextended completely. I'm pretty sure we talked all about this back when it started up, when they put like all their assets and efforts into streaming. They were like, "We got 10 billion shows coming. You're gonna watch them all. Screw theaters. We're done with that." It's like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
Well, it's like assuming like, oh yeah, this whole pandemic thing that's keeping everyone locked in their houses, so they've got no option but to stream stuff. Like, yeah, clearly that's going to last forever, isn't it? Yeah, I guess not really.
Yeah,
I think they're just fucked either way. I think it was always a house of cards, because the initial boost that they got was from like weird bundles. You know, you buy an iPhone and it comes with, you know, that or this or that. You know, just little silly deals like that they had, which brought in a lot of subscribers. So I'm actually intrigued, which we never get those actual numbers anyway, of how many of those are actually paying subscribers that, you know, went out of their way to actually get it, and not something that's tacked on to some other deal that they had. So yeah, obviously the content problem that Disney has isn't aiding them in any sort of way. But it was a bad idea. I think a lot of different companies are seeing that they just don't really have that enthusiasm, you know, behind them with streaming to justify people wanting to, you know, invest as customers into these various sort of streaming services. And that's the thing that's very difficult to navigate these days. I know they have probably some guys over there making lots and lots of money, that are part of their marketing departments, telling you put out these types of shows, you're going to get this amount of supporters and all that. And I'm just not sure that these guys know what they're talking about. But to be fair to Disney, they're not the only one. Well, in the streaming sense, I guess maybe they are, because Netflix isn't. Though they had declined, they saw a little bit of a uptick as of recent. But really, across the board in entertainment, they're having some trouble. They're having some trouble, like really, like what does general enthusiasm actually look like? Is it retweets? Is it Instagram likes? Is it people pretending to be you know, stoked about this? How do we make that translate into sales, or how can we gauge what our actual interest is? And that's what I think every company is having a difficulty really pinpointing what that looks like.
Well, this is what I was going to ask about, because like, is this just unique to the streaming service, or does it point to a larger decline in just like the brand of Disney? Because I was on Little Platoon's live stream on Monday, I think, and we talked a little bit about this, and I was saying, you know, as a kid when I was growing up, like Disney used to represent like the benchmark for quality when it came to animation, when it came to storytelling, all that stuff. Like they didn't put out a lot, but when they did, it was an event and you knew it was going to be something good. And it feels like that has been lost. And now, if anything, they're seen as like the sort of cinematic antichrist almost. Like everyone just think, oh Christ, what's the next shitty Disney remake going to be? What's the next like awful Disney reinterpretation for modern audiences going to look like? And the attraction of their brand has just been absolutely destroyed in recent years. And I just don't know how you get beyond that. I don't know how you recover from it.
Yeah, as someone who, you know, grew up with their reputation being golden, it's fascinating to watch them turn from like this wholesome, happy icon that plays before really great, you know, content to it's like seen as a Lovecraftian rat that's like absorbing all these different companies that everyone just keeps their eye on as like, you disgusting, gross, like perverted creature that's destroying all the things we love. It's fascinating. They managed to absolutely destroy it. And you know, was it done with business practices, or was it really just done by making too many shit products in a row?
I don't. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Like the way they've handled their customers, the way they've handled pushback on their various crappy movies and TV shows and stuff. It just all points to a larger problem of fan antagonism. And when you start antagonizing your own customers, like, man, I'm no businessman, but it just seems like a really crappy way to run a business. Telling your customers that they are like they need to do better and like they're the problem, rather than just saying, yeah, maybe we need to rethink how we produce stuff. You know, We've also got Chris Gore joining us tonight. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Drinker, MauLer, Eric.
What up?
Good to see you all.
Hello.
So you're not looking forward to the live action Moana? Is that safe to say?
I like how
this has become a meme at this point. Like, I love the idea that they're remaking shit that's like, it's only a few years old. Like, what, 5-6 years old or something? Like, it's already gotten to that point where they're remaking it in live action. Like,
just wait until they remake their remakes. That's when we're really into the dregs.
They'll remake the live action remake as an animated feature. It's just gonna keep going.
Full circle.
Oh man, it's awful though, because it's like you've got a world of stories out there you could tell. You know, if your thing is like, well, we need to like reinforce diversity and everything, it's like, well, okay, how about you go into the countries like Central Asia or Africa or the Far East or South America or whatever. They've got legends, they've got folklore, they've got all kinds of amazing stories. Take some of that stuff and make a new movie out of it. Something that's new and interesting and different that we haven't seen before. Instead, it's just like, nah, we're just going to take the stuff that we've done before that's got a proven track record. We'll just swap a bunch of the characters in it or the actors that are playing them. And repackage it for people now. It's the laziest possible way of making stuff, but that's what they keep doing.
I think it's funny that you're saying that as like a big thing they should do. It's like, but Drinker, even if they did do that, they've got no one to write these stories. Nobody who
that's true.
can do it. Nobody can nail that. They're not interested in hiring writers. It doesn't look like.
That's true. That's actually a great point.
So.
They've kind of painted themselves in a corner when you look at it like that, right? If they like who's actually going to give these guys a chance, and in the event that you do get the chance, are they going to do it right? And by all accounts, especially with Disney, they've proven that they don't really have any sort of interest in giving people what it is that they want. And I think, look, man, it's a company structural problem. Like I think I don't know if you guys here covered it. I know I did. That reimagined Disney stuff. That was a big deal. It was like this. I guess it was an all hands on deck sort of meeting. This was back when Chapek was still, of course, CEO, and they were talking about all these things that they were prioritizing when they were really going to go after, right before they was, I guess, going to go head to head with DeSantis. But it really lets you in on just how many layers this shit is. Like that, it runs deep. That this company that is supposed to be all about storytelling, that just by default will appeal to pretty much anybody out there. They're sitting here focusing on things that nobody actually gives a shit about. So it's a structural issue that seems to be top to bottom, and it's incompetence more than anything. I don't think it's just as simple as some. I think that's the pretty way of putting it. Is like, oh, it's this. They got these ulterior motives, and it's about this sort of political shit. And like, I think, I guess it's part of it, but a lot of it is just these guys are just fucking stupid. If you've seen these blue-haired wenches that they have working for these companies, it starts to really make sense that they just have the wrong people in these positions. And if structurally you're broken like that, of course you're gonna produce shit. So I think we give oftentimes, because we, I guess folks on our side of the aisle, we try to rationalize with everything. So we see a fuck up and we're like, there has to be a reason that this dog shit keeps getting produced. And maybe it's just as simple as these guys are fucking retarded and they don't. Maybe it's that simple.
It could be.
I've never ruled that out, Ripper. It's always been.
I mean, when you see the team meetings that they have, like the little behind the scenes segments, the writers' rooms and stuff, you just think, more than anything, I think it's people that have never fucking heard the word no in their entire lives. Like whatever stupid thing that they demand, like it just gets given to them, and like that seems to be how these things get made. I mean, it's the only way I can explain something like She-Hulk. No professional human being who is a fully grown adult would look at that and think, this will play well. We should do this. Yep. Let's put millions of dollars into it.
You just want to have that guy there, don't you? That one person that just goes, no. Why in the hell would you even suggest this? No.
He would just get fired.
That's a necessary person that has to be a part of any creative process if it's going to see success. Like seriously, you need that guy. And sometimes that person within the company has to be the bad guy, right? It was like what Jim Shooter was to Marvel back in the Gap, where you heard all these creators, all they hated him. And then, you know, he also facilitated the greatest era of Marvel comics between Claremont's X-Men and New Mutants, all that shit. He facilitated all of that. And he got a bad rap with the creators because he was forcing them to make deadlines. He was you know, forcing them rather to make content that people actually wanted. And sometimes you got to be the bad guy. And I don't think they have anybody within these companies that are willing to say, guys, you can hate me for it, but we're not putting this shit out. Because who the hell watches something like She-Hulk? And we see that being screened behind the company, and we're like, who's like, yeah, you mean to tell me every single individual is like, yeah. You can think about the layers that this has to go through. I guess, Chris, you would know more than anybody here. Oh, yeah. The layers that all this content has to go through, and nobody stopped it and said, yeah, people don't want that. Like, nobody did that.
You would be shocked at the number of meetings about the most minute decisions about everything related to anything in studio and television production, down to marketing materials. And some creatives who are smart, like a Christopher Nolan, in his contract, and I experienced this for a very weird reason, but Chris Nolan is very, very anal retentive when it comes to how his films are marketed. He approves all trailers. When he submitted footage that could be used to cut trailers for The Dark Knight, he gave them pieces from the first half of the movie, and that was it. And as much as, like, if you go back and watch those original Dark Knight trailers from 2008, you'll notice, I remember sitting in the theater going, oh my God, we're halfway through the movie. I've seen everything that's in the trailer. I have no idea what's going to happen. Yeah. And it was refreshing. So there are certain, I mean, you would just be shocked. You wouldn't be shocked. It just how many stupid people are just willing to say yes because they want to go along with the group. There are no, I hate to say this, Harvey Weinsteins to basically just say, hey, you know, like, we're not going to do this, or this movie has to be a certain running time. I mean, look at how running times of movies have slid. I've talked about it, and people have come after me for it. Like, directors and filmmakers should be able to do what they want. And yes, I agree, within reason. There are also creative people who work really well with certain boundaries. I mean, as much as I did enjoy unexpectedly Guardians 3, why there's no reason that thing should have been 2 hours and 30 minutes. So you could have cut so many subplots, the thing with the child trafficking. I get it. You can get one cause that you throw in. You had the animal experimentation. I thought it worked very well, tied into, you know, Rocket. That worked, but it just was like a bridge too far. 30. I mean, I don't understand. There aren't those creative people, and mainly because they don't know. There's certain people that talk about this. Richard Dreyfuss recently in the news about the dumb shit Academy rules now regarding. Oh yeah. And a lot of that is just a scam and a shakedown. Ava DuVernay's company can provide crew for you. So if you'd like to use her database of diverse crew people, that is a suggested solution. If you're, say, making a movie with all white people on screen, I don't know. Oppenheimer's probably not going to get nominated for Oscars. I'll just say that because it doesn't follow. I'm certain it doesn't follow those rules. But it's look, is Spike Lee going to be forced to put additional white people on his? He traditionally, Spike Lee, I admire him as a creator because he's a guy that, like, NYU Film School made a movie, put it out there. She's got to have it, and doesn't give a fuck. He also is a guy who doesn't complain the studio didn't give him an opportunity. He makes his own opportunities. That's what every great indie filmmaker does. But it's a mess right now. I hope this WGA strike goes on for a really long time because it's going to be a purge of people who probably shouldn't be in this industry to begin with. But yeah, like the number of meetings, even in, like, when I did TV shows back in the early 2000s, it was just shocking the number of stupid meetings over minutia. So I think it's because a lot of people want to justify their existence. This happens in any corporate structure. There's people who literally create problems and create meetings to show that their job is meaningful when they're basically morons taking up oxygen. So they would,
Oh god, I remember that. Yeah. There
yeah,
was people that had they'd been in since like the company was formed almost, and they just knew all the tricks to play. But it's like ultimately what they were doing was fucking pointless now. But it's like no one could tell them that because they just knew the right things to say to dodge any questions. Yeah, it was impressive, if nothing else.
exactly. Exactly. I at this point, I just won't work for any company that has a human resources department because I feel like you've grown beyond, a point where like suddenly like that's a corporate structure. I mean, Film Threat that we have like 30 writers and whatnot, it's a small company, it's and everyone here on this stream, small companies, right? All small businesses, creator driven. But
Yeah,
man,
I'm the same. Like no matter how big I got, I would never have a fucking human resources department because they are a fucking vampire just sucking the life out of your company and the people that work under it. And for some reason, that's where a lot of these, what do we call them, activists, assholes, whatever they are, they seem to gravitate towards the HR department because it's like, you know, some kind of military like infiltration plan. Like you couldn't work it out better than this. It's like target the HR department, infiltrate that, and you suddenly have control over the hiring practices of the entire company. And you can rule with an iron fist, and you can dismiss anyone that you want. You can make up a problem that is only going to get solved by dismissing them. That's the terrifying thing. But they do
yeah, I
it
think
time and time again.
there are apps and services you can use if you actually need a human resources department because HR departments now are specifically geared towards making sure that there are no lawsuits against the company. That's really what they're for. They protect the company's interest. There's nothing human about a human resources department. Although
Yeah.
I hear from people working at studios these days, HR departments, they would handle a couple problems would come up in a week. Now it's like, this is what I'm told. There are 20 to 30 complaints on a daily basis. And it's all
For
from
fuck's
people
sake.
who are new to the industry that heard someone say something on a set that offended them. And this is now an HR concern. These are people who really just like, they just don't know how to, I guess, hang in real life. I mean, certainly they couldn't, they couldn't hang on
Because
a live stream like this one just to
well,
have a normal conversation.
I mean, call me crazy, right? But I kind of imagine that, especially film sets and TV sets and stuff, they should be kind of a high pressure environment where you've got a lot of conflicting views, you've got big egos, you've got clashing personalities and opinions and stuff, and it's fiery and people shout at each other, and that's how things get resolved. That's how you hash out ideas and people put their opinions forward. And if you can't handle that, well, fucking hell, like just go and hide under your bed. Like maybe the film industry isn't the place for you. It just seems like that's what is needed to drive forward in like quality productions. And if you've got people constantly putting the brakes on and saying, "No, you can't say that. You can't get too confrontational because I'm feeling triggered." Uh, what the hell does a film set even look like now when
It
you've got
kind of
people like that constantly on the
prompts a
Yeah,
big old controversial question of the greatest art works of all time. Like if we took something, for example, like Blade Runner, and we found out that everyone was abused on set. If we could undo that abuse and lose Blade Runner forever, it's like, well, do you want to make that choice? It's like, shit.
I'm happy for
Well,
them to suffer. They got paid well.
yeah, but look at The Godfather. I mean, famously, that set was nuts. And usually, this is the rule that I've observed, having been on a lot of film sets, made films and television and whatnot. The more people get along and how fun the set is, usually the worse the film is. Not a rule, but like in general. And then the more chaotic behind the scenes, sometimes the more drama. Sometimes that translates to better work. I can tell you a real specific story about something that you are all familiar with. I can't reveal it on the live stream. I'll tell you guys in the private chat. So, a recent television show that has come to be beloved, the showrunner of the show, who directed episodes, wrote episodes, on the set, and everyone's wearing masks, right? So everyone on the set is wearing masks. Everyone has to wear a mask because of this. I don't know how much you know about it. There are different zones depending on what zone you're in. You wear a mask or don't wear a mask. If you're talent, you're generally not wearing a mask. So the showrunner of the show is wearing a mask, and he is sick. It's a standard issue cold, whatever. Sneezes into his mask, and some mucus is spewed forth. And he says, "Please, can someone get me a Kleenex? I splooged into my mask." The word splooge. Now, someone on the set complained that the word splooge was used. This is someone, a low-level person on this set, made this complaint. The showrunner of the show then had to have a meeting with human resources over a low-level person who hasn't worked. If you've been on a film set or just, you know what, forget film set. If you've done any sort of intense work, a lot of people make jokes to kind of break the tension. I'll tell you, if you're around a lot of gaffers, they swear like sailors, and that's fine. But this person had to have an HR meeting over some low-level person. I put in a private chat who it was, and but yeah, I mean, it's just shocking that this is now I'm being told that this has become the number of HR complaints at studios has gone up. Now, if I was there, I would have fired the person who made the complaint and said, this may not be for you. Didn't Netflix do a specific thing where they said, if you don't like the content we make, our company might not be for you. The balllessness of people at the mid-management levels, it's television and film studios, to not tell these people to F off or fire them. It used to be some couple weird things, I'll tell you, like friends of mine who have worked with the bigger directors. It used to be like on the first week on a set, you fire someone very publicly as a way to express your authority. That was just something. No, seriously. And then one of the best pieces of directing advice, like a friend of mine told me, but it was direct from the source, and I can tell you who it is. This was the directing advice from a studio director. If you have bad news to tell the crew, find an incredibly sexy, hot, young PA, 19 years old, maybe with a belly shirt, that's very sexy and attractive young woman. The bad news is delivered by that person. A young girl, and say, hey, we're going to go a little late tonight. Is that okay? We're going to go till, 2 a.m. Is that okay? We got to turn around. So you just send someone like that to give the news. By the way, that piece of advice, that filmmaking advice, came from Michael Bay. So
he's gone up in my estimation right there.
Yeah, I mean,
because he's right. He's 100% right.
And he runs his sets. If you know anything about Michael Bay and how he works, whatever you think about him as a filmmaker, I enjoyed that first Transformers movie. It's like a boy and his dog, a boy in his car. The first one, all the other ones are barely watchable. But he runs his sets like a military operation. I don't, and this is the thing. Whenever I've had to, you just have to sort of set aside feelings. No one cares about your feelings. We have to get 10 pages of a script shot by the end of the day, period. And in that kind of environment, things get tense. People tell blue jokes, blue humor. I mean, look, on Attack of the Show, in between takes, working at people would make raunchy jokes, boom, then we're on camera, we dial it back. But some of the best jokes were never captured on television. But so it's just that to me was just like normal. Like that's kind of how you talk. You're not going out of your way to hurt anyone's feelings. You're just trying to break the tension when things are intense.
Yeah, especially like you get a bunch of guys together, you're going to get locker room talk, and it happens every time. And like the idea that there's going to be this asshole just like hovering around the periphery, just like waiting to get offended by something and blow the whistle on you. Man, like it must just suck all the soul out of everything. Like the fun must just go out of everything that you do, because you're constantly having to censor yourself. You're constantly having to watch everything that you say just in case someone gets offended. Like,
well, it sounds like you can't possibly do your best work under those conditions. Definitely
No,
creative.
absolutely.
You couldn't do it. I mean, and I think the film industry is, man, it's certainly going through that. All that makes sense. I think all of these other, we saw like definitely after 2020, a lot of these corporate entities started to move in that direction as well with diversity and whatever DEI or die, whatever you want to say, departments that they've kind of forced within their sort of companies, and they have these sort of weird people that are really only there to police their own employees. And I can just imagine how crappy of a less the work environment, but like you can't possibly produce when every given or any given corner something's going to be rejected, not because it's bad, but more so because, well, this group may get offended, and all that's determined by some group of idiots that the company kind of hired, that's all they do is facilitate that. Like, that to me is just absolutely insane. But this is where we're at. I mean, I was talking about this with my supporters not too long ago about just, you can take movies that weren't even that old, like that weren't even that old, and that were maybe during that period of time that were seen as mild, that are now looked at like that just could not be produced. Like, not because it's not good, but because the sort of sanctions or self-imposed kind of restrictions that Hollywood has put on themselves just won't allow that to happen. So you look at something like even like the Rush Hour movies was what we were talking about, and some of these damn jokes that were being told, that was like, holy shit, there's no way that and those are classic films. I loved all Rush Hour 1 to 3. I loved every last one of them. But just going back when those were released, it was mild. Those were mild like movies, but now it's like they be controversial as all fucking get out, just because of just basic. And they weren't released that long ago. Tropic Thunder, where it wasn't released that long ago. Like these are relatively new in the sense of like American film history. So when you look at it from that perspective, it makes sense, I guess, why nothing that is often produced nowadays, even the stuff that we consider good, are looked at as like timeless, right? Like what can you think of the last thing that you like, all right, man, people are going to enjoy that for the next decades? Like, we look at classic films that were, 70s, 80s, 90s, wherever, that are going to stick around. Like, when's the last thing, or how many of those, let's say, are being produced? And it's just simply not that many. And I think a lot of it has to do with the sort of self-imposed restrictions.
I think it really comes to the fore in comedy, because that's when you have to push the boundaries, because it's like you're saying it's okay to laugh at this person, this group of people, whatever, and like more and more it's restricted in terms of who you can actually make jokes about, and now it's down to basically nothing. Because like I finally got round to watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it's good. It's really funny. Like the early seasons are good stuff, but like I look at the stuff that they tackle in it, and I know that would never possibly get made now. No fucking
Not
way.
even close.
Close. Yeah,
and haven't they like self-censored some of that shit? Like,
I'm pretty sure they'll start deleting episodes
so.
and just quietly removing them.
Yeah.
It's like Community is a couple of episodes that are down, but yeah, I mean, if saying splooge can get you in trouble, 4 of us wouldn't last a day on a set at this point.
What does splooge even mean? Like, why would anyone find that offensive? Am I missing something? Is this an American thing or what?
Well, I mean, if you'd ask me what it means, I'd be like, well, it's like fucking more sexual than anything, I guess.
Yes.
But like, it's chill, it's funny. It's not like highly inappropriate. I wouldn't have thought. Hell, I would easily have said it in one of many contexts on set, and then realized soon after, like, oh shit, people want to destroy me for saying that word. The thing about that is, like, you can't assume they're actually offended. You'd be like, what did you want? Did you want to get rid of me? Is that it? Like, why would you ever assume they're offended by that word? It's like, jeez.
I would love to get all of these people, though, and just put them in a fucking steel mill or something for a day. Like, just so that they can hear, like, normal people talking, and just, like, the kind of, like, banter, the kind of shit talking that goes on. Just so they can get a feel for, like, how real human beings communicate with each other. And, like, they could just... I don't know, man. Hopefully it would toughen them up a little bit, because if you just want to go through your life and you're going to make it a point of trying to control what everyone else gets to say around you, lest they offend you, you're going to set yourself up as that person that everyone fucking hates.
Yeah,
And
I feel
eventually
like
you're not going to get
um,
hired for things because like they're just going to know like this guy, whenever he's on set, he just causes problems. He complains about shit. He gets people in trouble. Fuck it, just don't hire him.
Oh
Ain't
yeah,
worth
yeah.
it.
I feel like that's really well illustrated by Red Letter Media made comparisons of the behind the scenes for the prequels versus the sequels, right? The prequels of this is almost dour at times, very difficult problem solving. Everyone's clashing. They're talking about whether or not the films will make it, whether or not this is a good idea, this, that, the other. And then the sequel stuff is like these really highly produced, all very scripted interviews with every cast member going, "This was the greatest thing. It was so wonderful and easy, and oh my god, we loved it."
It's like this. It's right to their head.
Yeah. Can you imagine what the vibe on the Rise of Skywalker set was? They must have been like, "What are we all doing?" Just like, I don't know, man. We're just trying to get this shit done.
All the actors must have been like, I've given up. I don't care. I'm just here to get my paycheck and get the fuck out of here. Let me know as soon as I've wrapped, because I'm out. I'm not even going to be at the party.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to say, one of the other things I was going to tackle was The Little Mermaid is almost upon us, gentlemen. And I'm assuming you're all as excited as we are because this is going to be the next great Disney live-action adaptation of an existing story that they've already done, like, much better probably in the past.
It feels like Peter Pan and Wendy was like an appetizer, and this is the main course for this year, I guess.
This is the what, like Peter Pan and Wendy, like they can kind of almost sweep that under the rug because it was released onto Disney Plus, and like they don't have to answer for like box office revenue or anything like that. But with this one, it's unavoidable. So we're gonna know whether this was a success or not. And so I was kind of curious to see what the box office tracking was like for this, and it's an interesting one because they seem to be asking the question. Nobody seems to know really how well or badly this is going to do. They're kind of comparing it to Aladdin, which I guess was the last or the most recent live action adaptation. But I'll read this little article that came from Cinema Blend. They're saying the Disney live action renaissance is set to continue this month with the long-awaited release of The Little Mermaid. I don't know if it's a renaissance. I probably wouldn't refer to it as that. But if the recent box office predictions are any indication, Halle Bailey's Ariel is about to make a huge splash among audiences excited to see Under the Sea imagined 30 years later. Now the question is it going to stack up against other remakes from Walt Disney, namely 2019's Aladdin, which came out during the same holiday weekend in May? So I think what they're predicting is 110 million domestically in the first weekend.
Right.
How much did they pay for that film? Anybody know here? Off the top of their head?
To make it?
Yeah.
Good question. Hold
I'm
on.
not sure the budget on these things.
'Cause
Unfortunately,
it doesn't come in. It doesn't usually come out until later. But
Well,
I'll
yeah,
see
you
if it
can get.
says
They
it.
usually go like will tell you what at least how much they spent, but marketing is the one that we generally have to guess.
It's
You're probably
heavy on
compared against-
CGI, so
Yeah, that's what I
would
would think. That's why I'm like, it had to be like maybe a $200 million film, huh?
I would think so. Yeah, considering like blending live action with CGI. I don't think there's any particularly big stars in it, so the salaries aren't going to be
that's
huge.
true.
But
That's true. Yeah.
also going from Aladdin, the budget for that was apparently 183 million. So, probably safe to assume.
it has to be more than that, then, right?
You'd
I'd say
think.
it's pretty comparable. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
to be fair, that movie made over $1 billion. So
This is the thing, like as much as we shit on these live action adaptations, right? They make money. That's
They
the
do.
problem.
why
Like
they keep
Beauty and
making
the
them.
Beast made money. Aladdin made money. Like I don't know about The Lion King. I think that made quite a lot of money, but
That made the most, didn't they? That broke records.
did it?
Yeah,
Jesus.
as far as I'm aware, that's the highest grossing animated movie of all time, quote unquote, fucking whatever. I don't even like it's a nightmare, that film, and it doesn't deserve the box office result it got, but it did indeed. And I'm pretty sure that film is why they're like fast tracking a shit ton of them. They're going to be doing a Lion King 2, and everyone's like, "Oh shit, what's that going to even be about?" It's like, doesn't matter what it's about. Just make a Lion King 2.
People are saying 1.6
Holy
billion.
fuck, dude. The budget for the budget for the Lion King
Jesus.
live action, quote unquote, was 260 million.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's hefty budget, but like that's a good return
a
on
lot
it.
of. I mean, yeah, but with that budget, you got to make 800 million minimum. Obviously, they made double that. It sounds like to even break to break even and start making money. So yeah, that'll be interesting. How much this? Yeah, I don't know, man. Who is going to see this shit? Like.
This is an interesting one because unlike the previous animated remakes that were done in live action, like Aladdin, the Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, this seems to have more of a backlash against it because I'm pretty sure the trailers are getting ratioed, and
what it should be compared to is Cruella and Mulan.
But those for sure didn't do well though. Like
that's what I'm saying. It should be categorized similarly to them, I think.
Yeah. I think those were of that bunch. Those did the worst for sure.
So I'm gonna with several results, right? Like, will it be more of an Aladdin or will it be more of a Cruella?
Right. That makes sense.
I'm gonna take a look at the trailer. I just see what the ratio is like on it. So official trailer from a month ago, right? All right. So,
did Cruella release on theaters and streaming? It did, right? Or was it just streaming?
It was theaters and streaming because it came out in the midst of the pandemic, I think. So, to some extent, you can't measure that against normal box office ratios because it was a bit of a weird situation it was in. It didn't help that it was a shit movie, and I don't know who it was meant to appeal to.
Really shit movie.
Our main character wants to skin puppies and turn them into handbags. Like, yeah, that's definitely the kind of person I aspire to. Awesome,
so endearing,
nice one, Disney. But yeah, with Little Mermaid, it just feels like that's created more controversy and more backlash than any of their previous movies, and I don't know how much of that is going to filter through to just general audiences and how much of it is just contained within, the online space. So it might be that normal people just aren't even aware of it. They're just going to go see it. It's coming out at kind of a slow spell, I think, in the summer box office season, because by that point, Guardians 3 will have faded out, and there's not really anything big, I don't think, to challenge it. So
it seems like the point. So it's set up for success in that aspect. I always wonder with these types of movies, like, again, who the fuck is seeing them? But more importantly, like, what that setup is, because I'd imagine, like, probably because of this idea that it's catering to young people, maybe there's like fucking school field trips and like all sorts of bullshit and buying out theaters to have someone see it. Because I don't. Granted, yeah, I'm not. Well, technically, because I'm black, I am the target demographic because I can see myself now. So, with that being said, it does seem like there's no enthusiasm like there is for general movies that are going to do well going into the summer. So this is difficult to gauge for sure.
I do like that though, like the representation. It's like you too, Eric, can see yourself as an undersea sea creature.
Yeah, which reminds me of like Grace's. I saw that for the first time yesterday. Grace Randolph's take about the whole interracial. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see.
She has so many amazing takes. It's hard to keep up.
Oh my god! So essentially, she said that basically this was, give or take, not putting it in exact words, almost a metaphor for interracial marriage, interracial relationships. Because of the fact that she was like, she's like half fish, I guess, essentially, and Eric is not. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, the way she worded it made it seem like, oh, what he's trying to say, like we're like subhuman, or what the fuck? Where was she going with that? It was weird, man.
You can always rely on Grace Randolph for a good solid take. That everyone can get behind.
Weird, dude.
It was like I think the highlight was like watching her try to make sense of the Mario Brothers movie and just like not fucking understanding a single thing she was seeing. It was great.
Yeah,
it was like showing it to my gran or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the coverage of it has been interesting, right? Because it's not just we're not just like race swapping the characters and stuff. Like they're changing the tone of the movie because it's all about changing Ariel's journey as a character, because before, the thing that made her want to really like give up her her life under the sea and like move up to the surface and experience life up there was the love of another person. Like she fell in love with Prince Eric or Eric, the human. But now that's unacceptable because that sends the wrong message to modern audiences. Yeah, it's problematic. So now it's going to be all about her. And it's interesting because there's a quote here from Halle Bailey, who's playing her, saying, I'm really excited for my version of the film because we've definitely changed that perspective of her just wanting to leave the ocean for a boy. It's way bigger than that. It's about herself, her purpose, her freedom, her life, and what she wants. Great. Yeah, I can't wait to see a movie.
When she says something like that, you just want to be there as an interviewer and be like, do you think there's something very, lame and limited about love? And she'll be like, no, that's not what I mean. You're like, okay, so you didn't need to denigrate it so hard there. That's okay.
I guess I would ask her, or I would ask the writers, like, do you see it as a bit of a problem that the main character of your movie is literally just only interested in herself? Like everything she does is just about making her happy. It's like what she wants. There's no like higher purpose to any of it because she talks about it's a really interesting way she phrases it. She's saying wanting to leave the ocean for someone else. It's way bigger than that. It's about me. But it's like surely that's the smallest thing possible. Like when you distill your whole view of the world down to just yourself, that's as small as it can possibly get. And when you say, I'm literally just living, everything I do is just for me. All my decisions are based around what's best for me. That's the smallest view you can take of the world. But it's framed as this grand thing to aspire to. It's brilliant that she's just all about herself. No, it's not. That doesn't make for a good character. That doesn't make for a hero.
Can I jump in and just... I'd like to dispel this stupid idea that you need to see yourself in things. I think that's a terrible idea that somehow spread and now that's like, when you talk to someone and you realize they have no original ideas of their own and they go to default settings, which is a recording of something.
NPCs.
Yeah. They just parrot whatever that is, and you're like, oh, I'm not even talking to a person. I'm talking to a hollow shell that's repeating bad ideas. So that whole idea I've always thought is a bad idea because the entire purpose of all fiction, comic book, video game, a novel, movie, is to see and be able to identify with someone who isn't you. Yes. That is the point, is to see the world through someone else's eyes and to learn what empathy is. So I can, I can watch the movie Alien and I identify with Ellen Ripley mainly because she's the smartest one. She didn't want to let Kane into the Nostromo because she knew that was protocol. Captain Dallas overrode that, or no, it was Ash.
It was Ash, yeah.
Ash, yeah. So who was I on board with on that journey? Her. I'm a dude, okay? So and you could go through a ton of other fiction, whether it's a cartoon animal or whatever. Like this what that teaches you is empathy for someone who isn't you. The idea that it's like someone needs to look exactly like me. I don't want to see a movie where the character looks like me. It's the point of fiction is to, one of the points is to be able to detach and empathize with someone who isn't you. So that this has become a popular concept, I happen to think is one of the stupidest ideas. And when I see people parrot that, where are the people? I assume that everyone on this panel and those in the chat, hail to the chat, understand this concept of fiction being a way to experience the world through the eyes of someone else. Why is that not more popular? Because I think there's more of a benefit in our human experience to having that capability rather than narcissistically looking and like, this would be great if it was just cast with a light-skinned black woman. Let's just do that for everything, which is it's to me, it's just become the default setting that is so, it's just boring. It's just boring.
Well, it's
Trying to
like
say,
it's because they limit relatability to stuff like that. So, these are supposed to be, the least interesting things about you, stuff like race
Right.
and all of that. You didn't have any control over that. It's not anything you like earned or anything. You kind of just came out that way. And these people, I think a lot of folks that create, and I use that term loosely because it is dog shit, but these people are boring themselves, which is why you have so many people hyper emphasizing things such as race, sexuality, and all these other things. People brag about it. They even now got their little disabilities or shortcomings, or they'll put it in their bio and stuff like that, because these are things that they're boring and they don't have much to them. But to the average person, there's going to be some level of relatability to various different characters, because we all have different life experiences. So I always go back to like the comic book stuff, because for me, like, my favorite character growing up was Flash, and Wally was the Flash when I happened to be growing up. But I was an athlete, right? I was particularly a sprinter. So that was what. Hey, it's this guy whose one power is just to run really fast. I thought that was generally as kids, you think that type of stuff is cool, but that was my level of relatability. But I'm not necessarily the makeup of Wally. Well, once they race swapped in the New 52, I guess then I was, but before then I wasn't. But with like now, Batman, for example, being my favorite character as an adult, there's levels of relatability that you can have with various characters, and find a concept that you relate with, that it should be outside of the line of like race or sexuality and stuff like that. But these people are boring. These people are losers. And of course they are activists. So that's why they have to think, well, and they're also narcissistic, to Chris's point, which is why they hijack stuff all the time. And they say, hey, this thing that you guys like, we're going to take it, and now I'm going to make it about me. Right. Or about this person needs to look like myself, because look at all the little girls that'll finally feel like they're represented, because they expect that the audience, which is the unfortunate part of it, that the audience is just as shallow as they are. Right. And I hate that's it certainly come to that. Like, what message certainly are you sending to young people? I hate when they go like, oh, look at this role model this and role model that. People can finally see success because there's now some half black or light skinned black woman that's now Little Mermaid. I'm like, do these people not have mothers? Do these people not have grandmothers? Like, of all the people to look at and be like, oh, I'm inspired to see success as some fish chick in a live action movie. That says that we got a lot of fucking problems if that's the case. But they're boring people. That's what it ultimately boils down to. They're boring, narcissistic at the same time, but these are very shallow people. And when you talk with them, you get to pick up on that. They don't really have anything interesting about them, which is why they try to hide behind that shield of like race and sexuality and other stuff like that.
When it's actors and celebrities and stuff, do you think like they believe that stuff? They genuinely buy into it, or do you think it's
it's a bit of self-importance? Yeah, for sure. I don't know if how much they think is actually true, but I know they for sure will at minimum pay lip service to this stuff, because it makes them feel like they're on some sort of like crusade, right? Which is, the first thing that I heard about this, the actress for the Little Mermaid, is her, of course, is some interview when she's going on about how I think this is so important for black and brown young people, right? To see this. And it's like, they also look at themselves like they're fighting for someone's freedoms. And that's where the narcissism comes from it. Like, it's a bit of self-importance. So it's like, I am the hero here, right? Because look at me, because your children will now see me acting in a role of a person that actually isn't me, because that's the point of you being a fucking actor. You're not a mermaid at the end of the day. Now, all of a sudden, these people will be inspired to do great things. So effectively, yeah, I guess they do believe it, because they have that bit of self-importance about them. And it's you got to be a cocky son of a bitch to think you that speak on behalf of all like black and brown people in the first place. Like, you got to be really cocky to believe that.
Well, I was going to ask, like, is the other option that, like, it's just totally motivated by their own self-interest, like, as an actor or whatever? Like, if I really push this stuff, it opens up more roles for me, because I can claim that I'm oppressed or whatever, and I'm fighting back against this stuff by being in roles that I wouldn't normally be cast in. Viola Davis when she was talking about the Woman King. I know that's a role she should be cast in, but it was like, if you don't go and see my movie, then you're some kind of bigot or whatever. Like you're like proving that black women can't sell tickets at the cinema. But it's like, of course she's going to say that, because it's like you have to go and see the movie so that it's financially successful, so that she proves herself to be a box office draw, so she'll get hired for other movies going forward. Like, you could see it from both points of view. Is it an activist thing, or is it just like, I'm out to make more money for myself thing? I never know what they're trying to do with these things.
On Ripa's point, and I don't mean this in a cruel way, just in a being truthful way. Most people are unremarkable, and so what they try to do is find something interesting about themselves. No disrespect to people who have tattoos, but I do think a lot of people who make their hair pink or blue, which are frankly mostly white people, just that want to be interesting.
Outside of Cisco and Dennis Rodman, you're probably right, man.
Yeah, well, I love Dennis Rodman. I used to on the Pistons. He was one of the bad boys.
Yeah.
He was like a kid then. I'm from Detroit, so I always loved Dennis Rodman. But he's genuinely an interesting person. He doesn't. He doesn't toe the line on mainstream ideas. But for the most part, when I see, just so the type of people I'm talking about, they try to make themselves look interesting, and then when you actually drill down and have a conversation, they're fairly vapid. I'm not saying this to be mean. It's just a truth and something just I've observed. Because I am fairly certain I am the oldest person on this panel. I am the ancient one, as they say. I'm older than frickin' Gary, so there you go.
The elder.
I mean, I feel older than you sometimes, Chris.
Oh, that's cool. That's all good, man. I still feel like 26. I just sort of stopped maturing at 26, so I can do my taxes, but I still laugh at farts. So there you go.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna say quick, I thoroughly agree with Eric and Chris, and that's not just because one is a man and one is white. Like I find them more endearing for other reasons than that. But I was also gonna say it's kind of funny that this notion hasn't been stamped down completely, especially with recent examples of, like, let's say, MCU. Take that for example. What is the most like compelling recently character that people have gotten into? It's a fucking raccoon. How do you explain that? If like, oh yeah, everyone's agreed, like it's a really good set of writing, it's really endearing, it's really something that you can associate with. People have talked about the loved ones they've lost in relation to his story, and obviously friendship and stuff. It's like, he's a raccoon, and then you might have someone idiotically say, yeah, well, he is a guy though.
Yeah, good one.
So it's just I've never bought it, never will, and it's just a shame because it drives us away from focusing on characteristics, values, histories, and all that good stuff, and instead, as you said,
I think often it's used as like the sort of thin edge of the wedge to allow you to start like just like altering all these stories, these characters, like all these like things that have been done before, like the Little Mermaid's a good example. Done by a Scandinavian author. She was described explicitly as having red hair. She was white, like whatever. Like you can argue the toss about whether that's like the appropriate thing for a fucking fictional like sea monster to be. But the point is, like, that's how she was described in the original text. That's how she's been shown in various iterations in movies and stuff over the years. Now they made a political point out of casting a black actress in the role because they want to say that, like, well, little girls have to be able to see themselves represented on screen. It's like, well, yeah, but little girls don't see themselves as fictional, like, mythical sea creatures, but like that, it goes beyond that. But it's like they just take it as the most superficial characteristics to give them justification to do stuff like this. But then you question, like, well, where do you stop with all this? Like, is there ever going to come a point where they say, like, yeah, we've done enough of this now? We're pretty happy with the balance that we've achieved here. It just feels like they never will. Like, there's always going to be something else that they have to, like, strive towards. There's always going to be another battle they have to fight.
When you're in a
and it just
perpetual
never
state
ends.
of activism, that's what happens, and I think that's why it's attractive. I've always said that it's the occupation of losers, because like it'll never be enough. Number one, I mean, I feel like culturally, definitely in America, that hump, we got over that hump in the 90s. Like it was. That's not to say that, for example, on the subject of race, it's not to say that there weren't acts of racism or something of that nature. It just wasn't hyper emphasized by then. People, there could be, and even like the diversity element, like you could have like some a cast that was exclusively white, and you had black people that thoroughly enjoyed it. Whether it was like Seinfeld, whether it was Friends or what have you, and then you had on the other side almost exclusively black cast throughout sitcoms and the Fresh Princes and the Martins and the Living Single and all that, and nobody gave a shit at no point where we having this conversation like, oh, there should be more black people present in these shows. Like nobody cared because that wasn't the focus. So I think definitely a lot of these young folk, think about it, they never had to really experience any sort of like struggle like that, so they had to make it up, right? So this is why they like to think of themselves, definitely these young cats, like to think of themselves, they're fighting for some level of fucking freedom. Definitely on the subject of racism, when we got over this shit decades ago, during the decade I was born in, we were well over that hump, like where people weren't hyper emphasizing this stuff, especially at least in the media. So when you are at a perpetual state of activism, it'll never be enough. And a lot of guys are finding that stuff out the hard way, because you got these groups and organizations and companies that have catered to these demographics top to bottom, and still all it takes is one thing for them to like get wrong, and then they get thrown under the bus, right? That's sort of the culture that we're in.
The purity testing's been insane in like all industries.
Could I jump in based on what Eric just said? This is before your time, Eric. I used to watch a show. It was my favorite sitcom. It was called What's Happening. Okay, I don't know if you remember that show. There's a character the character I identified with was Raj, who was the main character because he wore glasses. I wore glasses. He was being raised by a single mom. I had a single mom at that time, struggling. I understood it. And every episode was a morality tale. It was some moral issue that had to be dealt with. It's a very simple story. Love that show. Watch it with my sister. Rerun was a favorite because he was like the comedic relief. But if you've ever seen like clips from that show, I mean, this is a much older show. I love that show, but it was about kind of problems that come with like a family. I didn't think about the skin color of the people on the show. Yep. You know, it just didn't occur to me. It just identified with other aspects, which is fine. But I also want to circle back to a slight shade that MauLer threw my way when he said there was a man and a white guy. I think he was referring to me.
Yeah,
I heard that joke.
I did notice that one.
A man.
That way.
Well, I just want to say to you, sir, I have sired 2 children, just so you know, grown children, one of which my son is a U.S. Marine. So I just want to say, Eric and I think, are both truly men.
And that is the sole reason I find you guys to be correct.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you, MauLer. I appreciate it. I thought if you meant it as a joke, I thought it was funny.
Yes, I meant it as a joke. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, great.
It was intentional.
I love your humor, man. It's awesome.
It's good. That's good.
The only other thing I wanted to mention was obviously Guardians of the Galaxy now has been out for about 3 weeks. 3 weeks. A week. Apologies. So we're starting to get a shape of how it's doing at the box office, and it's not been great, which is an interesting one because it kind of indicates like how enthusiastic people are for Marvel properties at this point. I can just cover a little bit of it here. This is from Den of Geek. Was saying, despite being positioned in the same first weekend of May that many Marvel movies have previously occupied, including Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the third film opened at the box office well below what expectations were when Volume 3 was announced. The threequel and trilogy closer earned $118.4 million across the 3 days of its North American run, While in a vacuum that might seem impressive, it's less so when compared to the 146 million debut earned by Volume 2 6 years ago. It's a 19% drop. It's even more disconcerting when one considers how much ticket prices have inflated since 2017, which is very true.
Hmm.
So they're basically concluding it's too early to conclude where Guardians 3 is going to end up in terms of
It
box
needs
office
legs,
numbers.
bro. It
Yeah,
needs it.
so
It needs it bad. Like I don't know if the word of mouth, if that, well, if the other holds are any indication, this is on its way to lose money, right? It's
yeah.
on that trend, which that spells bad because you think you have a lot of people that are looking at this that do view it in a lot more favorable light than other, like comparatively speaking to other recent Marvel movies, which really speaks to the issue there, and that is that they've lost any sort of like where they used to be able to shit out $1 billion movie. That those days are long gone. They
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
possibly do that anymore. And the enthusiasm, the genuine enthusiasm that people had for this brand and this universe is gone. It just simply isn't there. And I think they did the phase that came after whatever Infinity War and Endgame, where they just were producing a lot of dog shit back to back to back to back. I think they banked on being able to keep that audience around, and they haven't. They simply haven't been able to do it. So it's a lesson in business in general, man, that people need to pick up on. Like when you lose an audience, man, it's very hard to get them back. They can be forgiving for a film or two, but definitely when they think that you're bringing people on that may not be as passionate, you don't ever want to feel like as the customer, you're more passionate about a brand or a project than the people that are creating the shit. And it's very hard to win those people back once you lose them. It was theirs to lose. Let's make that very clear, which is why it's a failure on Marvel's behalf, because they ran the industry essentially is what it is. So it was a layup for them. They had to go out of their way to screw this shit up, right? And they
Yeah.
had. And no matter how audience response may be, hey, I've seen this film and it's all right, a lot of folks already checked out, and they're simply not coming back. It's going to take a Hail Mary. Maybe that's what the Fantastic Four is going to be. Maybe that's what X-Men and bringing those more notable characters is going to be. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, this all but confirms that, because there were a lot of people that were like, oh well, these other movies that didn't do so well, wait till Guardians comes out, and then even though people may be seeing it more favorably, it doesn't seem like it may break even. We'll see what happens, but it's not nearly the success that I think a lot of people were anticipating.
I think this is the thing as well. Like the idea at this point that a Guardians movie would just barely break even on a good day would have been unthinkable
That's
when
true.
Guardians 2 was released, because like you say, that was the era when they could shit out billion-dollar movies and every one of them was making bank. Now we're past that. And I think what we're going to see now is probably Marvel's never going to die as a cinematic force. It's never going to completely stop, but I think what it's going to do is transition into like a second tier it's like cinema force.
Yeah, they got to roll back
The
budgets.
movie, yeah, I think they're going to have to go sub 100 million on their movies because they know they're not going to make the returns, and like cut down the budget, make them a bit more restrained, and maybe diversify a little bit, and you'll still have a franchise that can make money because there'll be hardcore fans that will come and see it no matter what.
True.
There's just not as many of them now as there were 4 or 5 years ago. It's just a
What I
different
find
world now.
interesting about all this box office discussion, I really just want to know how it's doing, and then we talk about what it might mean going forward and stuff. But unfortunately, online in like the meta, it becomes like a team sports thing. You'll get accusations from one side being like, you just want it to do bad, so you'll claim it's doing bad. They relate this to how Shang-Chi did, how Eternals has done, blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but you want to counter the idea that it's doing bad, so you're just going to say it's doing good, and that's and it's just like, it's just clouding everything. I seriously am interested in just knowing how well will it do. This second week drop off is going to be honestly fascinating because it'll tell us so much.
I think for everybody, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's not like it'd be like, oh yeah, but you want it to fail. I'd be like, well, I don't like that the MCU makes shit tons of money because I don't think that they earn it. But there's plenty of people who work really hard on all of it. It's just that the stories they're telling are pathetic for very much the most part. So, you know, it's you could argue I'm biased in favor of it falling apart, but ultimately, I just want to know how it's doing. Because what do we end up doing when, say, for example, Little Mermaid makes over $1 billion? We're just gonna be like, wow, I don't know why, but
Yeah.
like there it goes. It has the reputation. It's built off of the classic. It's got the audience, I guess, of it really appeals to children. It's like a signal to adults. They can take their children to see something that they'll be chill with. I know that there's plenty of people out there who probably consider them really good, and that's totally fine. It's just it's interesting to talk about, and it becomes team sports so quickly, like everything does these days, and it almost gets hard to actually have a normal conversation about a lot of it.
Yeah, the market is the market, and I think that I mean, definitely with what I've done over the last year, I've been more intrigued by gauging that. You know what I mean? Where that market it goes, because, you know, hell, I make comic books, so, you know, anybody should be keeping up with. Yeah, granted, it's movies, but it's still based off of comic book characters, so it's certainly worth keeping up with.
Yeah.
And you got to be honest with it. Doesn't matter whether it does good or bad. Like, I think there's a level of interest, no matter what it should be, and no matter what side you're on, to see kind of how it is that what the trajectory is of this industry, and where it's going. And I've certainly, as a businessman, I'm very intrigued by that, because, you know, you learn what to do, you learn what not to do, certainly, and you see what happens, what the mistakes are in the event that you, or what the success can be, you know, in the event that you do this thing. So it's always intriguing, at least for me. A lot of people got skin in the game with that. Like, I mean, it ain't like Marvel's paying me to say shit, good or bad. When I was doing shit, talking positive about movies or talking negative, it's not like they were paying me. So it doesn't really matter one way or another for me.
Yeah. The way I see it is just that we only ever comment on the ups and downs, and hopefully the fucking crash and burn with this franchise, because they've had so many. It was like Rippy was saying that, like, how many times can people take like a bad movie, and it's like they've done so many in a row. It's actually unreal that they're still healthy, or could be considered so.
Yeah, the fact that they
think
can
that's
even
what happens
talk
when
about breaking even with spending that much money.
But look,
yeah, I think when you've got
past,
so much momentum behind you, like it's like MauLer says, it takes a lot to derail that.
But we're seeing it.
That's the fascinating thing, though, for me. Like, as a business, I see that. I'm like, how in the fuck could a franchise that put out something like Captain fucking Marvel, right, and made $1 billion off of, which went to show you just how they could not do any wrong. They couldn't do any wrong. Gets to this spot in a relatively short period of time. That is fucking fascinating, man.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, we all had the sense that this was going to happen. Like, partly it was because of the direction the comics had gone. Like, particularly guys like Gary and stuff, and probably yourself, were very aware of like the direction the Marvel comics had gone in recent years. And it's like, if they start to replicate that, if they start to push that crap into the movies, they're going to be in big trouble. And we all, I thought, no, they're not going to do that, because they know how to make money. They've proven it over the past 10 years. Why would they throw that away? And sure enough, they started doing it. And the other facet of it was, well, after the Infinity Saga, after Endgame was done, you've run out of like your main storyline. You need to have something else to draw people in. It's got to be something good. It's got to equal the Infinity Saga. And they had nothing. And they still don't have anything. It's still this fucking mess.
Oh, they're in trouble, man. Like, and that's what I didn't understand. It's like, well, again, I guess they thought they could do no wrong, and they did go the trajectory almost verbatim. Like, I mean, it was a copy of all different Marvel shit, where they were bringing in characters nobody fucking asked for, to try to put in prominent positions. And I guess they thought that this is the way. This is what people want. This is what it is, pure incompetence. And because we've shed out $1 billion movies, we're going to be good dropping something like the Eternals. And it's like, yeah, man, I don't think that's the move. But I mean, we can't even. I remember early on, people would say, well, they're doing this because of the rights. And then when you found, Disney basically gobbled every Marvel property that they need to get back outside of Spider-Man, they got. So it was like, why are you still giving people characters that nobody asked for? and putting them in, and trying to pretend like they're characters that people wanted. Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. Yeah, you can introduce, let's say, lower level characters and all that, but imagine sitting on some of the characters that you had that people are like, I would love to see this play out live action, and then you bring up Kamala Khan, and you're like, yeah, I don't know about or Eternals or Shang-Chi even for that matter. It's like they didn't play their cards right, and you got a lot of line skipping, and now we got with fucking Echo and other characters nobody fucking asked for. It's like, and I don't even see how they could, because I mean we got Marvels that is about to come out. Like Guardians was there. If they were going to turn it around, that was going to be it. And if this doesn't hold, what do they have coming down the pipe in an immediate future that people can look at and say, yeah, all right, this will get me back into it? Like the Marvels ain't gonna do it. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be interesting.
And at this point, like, we can't have them, because Phase 4 was pretty disappointing for most, like, normies. And so if Phase 5 goes on the same track, like, they can't say, well, you know, we got some great stuff lined up for Phase 6. You just have to bear with us. Like, people aren't going to fucking wait around for that, man.
True.
That's years you're talking. Like, those general audiences have got a pretty short memory, and they will move on to something else pretty quickly. And I feel like we're seeing it already. You know, we talked before about, is video game adaptations going to be the next cinematic trend? Is it going to pivot back to action movies? Not sure, but it just feels like this genre is in its twilight years now. And there's not a whole lot they can do to turn that around at this point.
I 100% agree with you on that, Drinker. It's I think video games will be the next trend. I think what's sad about it is, look, it's not as if movies haven't sucked in different eras. Most mainstream movies that have sucked are not memorable because they just don't survive the era in which they came out. I mean, I can name a ton of movies that were huge hits when I was a kid that are freaking awful movies. There's no accounting for taste when it comes to moviegoers sometimes, right? But the thing that's, I think, really sad about this is this was completely avoidable. It was an avoidable thing for Marvel. So it's sad. I do think that video games is going to be the trend. I also have to apologize to you for the number of splooge comments that are now in the chat. It's a bit out of control.
That shit went off the rails.
Yeah, it's gone off the rails. All I say is one word on the show. It has now become, it'll be one of those emojis that you can get if you're a member of the channel. I'm sure there'll be a splooge emoji. So...
Well, it kind of already is.
It's just, it's never ending. Like, and I think it's great because we haven't interacted with the splooge thing at all, but like they've just kept it going for the past like half hour.
Yeah, Infinity. No one has said Infinity Splooge yet. I feel like Infinity Splooge was the obvious one.
They might have done. I just might have missed it. You know, there's so many. Right. The only other thing I was gonna like talk about, because this just came up while I was looking at news articles as we were going through this. It's regarding the Acolyte for Star Wars, because that's another brand that's doing fantastic right now. But the Acolyte is headed up by Leslie Headland, and she's discussed, well, it kind of ties back into what you said, Eric, about like everyone just needs to see themselves represented. And for a lot of these people now, it's just literally people who are exactly like me. They can't identify with anything else. And there's a great quote from her that I think describes her mindset going into this show. And I'll just read it out here. She's talking about how it's very female focused in terms of the bad guys in it, the antagonists. She says, Headland discussed the Acolyte's baddie-centric approach to storytelling in an interview with Empire, revealing that it was her experiences as a pop culture fan growing up. Quote, when I was a young queer girl, because of course you have to mention that, I was just hanging out with Ursula the Sea Witch from The Little Mermaid. As a queer girl growing up, if you don't identify with the heroes and the villains show up and they're all queer-coded, whatever the fuck that means, you're like, yes, that's me. Jeez. Headland also touched on how this will affect the Acolyte's tone, hinting that the show will offer a more arch vibe, I don't know what arch vibe means, than Star Wars fans are used to. Quote, as a queer filmmaker, you're going to see some camp in The Acolyte, inevitably, but I would say that tonally our references are darker. So essentially, this sounds like a complete fucking shit show of a TV show that makes
What?
no sense thematically. And Leslie Headland is queer apparently because she only mentioned it 6 times in the space of that interview.
Well, look,
Imagine going into an interview and it's like I have to just constantly talk about what I am and how that impacts like my writing. Because God forbid I would just talk about the creative process of the story we're telling. Nah, it's about me. Because that's the only thing that ultimately matters is me.
it's
Arsehole.
interesting. If I want queer camp, I'll watch a John Waters movie, who I happen to love John Waters, but he doesn't, even he who happens to be gay, John Waters, he doesn't talk about it constantly. He makes movies that are funny, that have broad appeal, who happen to have some gay themes in, well, I would say most of his movies. But yeah, that's the kind of thinking is so awful. I saw, I don't know how it turned up, but I saw an interview where Christopher Nolan at the DGA interviewed Denis Villeneuve about Dune. This was before part 2 was greenlit. And he asked him a really simple question about his vision for it. And he said he wasn't putting anything in that was personal to him. He was trying to translate Frank Herbert's vision onto the screen. It was very similar to the quote with Peter Jackson talking about Tolkien. It's a very similar wording, even in the way he responded. And I don't know why more filmmakers don't think that way. Like you hardly hear George's name come up anymore with regard to Star Wars. Even Star Trek with Star Trek: The Next Generation. I mean, Gene Roddenberry was famously involved in the first season ish, and then got sidelined. But you heard Roddenberry's name come up a lot during Next Gen as kind of a guiding. Like a way to kind of guide the vision. And that just the fact that doesn't exist, it's just a corporate free-for-all for whoever Kathleen Kennedy chooses to empower. And they feminized it. Look, I don't think Disney is capable of making any boy brand or male brand. They feminized Star Wars. They feminized Marvel. It takes some time. It's not an instant thing, right? It's something that takes time over a couple of films, the corporate culture, couple of hires in the middle management range, and then suddenly your brand is feminized. But if it's on purpose, I think it's awful, because I cannot even think of a feminine brand that they've tried to appeal to men. Are they making Barbies to appeal to men? Have they ever done something like that? A traditional
Broby.
What's that?
Yeah.
Broby. That's what they should call it.
Broby.
The door only ever swings one way with all this stuff.
Bizarre.
It only ever does. And I don't know what the rationale behind it is. I don't know if they think, well, if we appeal to girls, like boys will just kind of follow suit. So we've captured both markets magically. I don't know how that works for them. But it's like, when it becomes the meme where you say like, oh, what's the latest Disney Star Wars project going to be? It'll probably have a female lead, and it'll probably be dealing with like modern issues but transposed into Star Wars. And that seems to be basically what they're doing now. We've got Ahsoka coming out. We've got a new Rey Skywalker movie, which fucking everyone's desperate for that, aren't they? We've got the Acolyte. It's all female centric. It's made by an all female like writing team, pretty much. What more do you want? At what point do you say it's enough?
Spoiled.
Well, I'll give you a really good example, a recent example. If you happen to have Disney Plus, there's a TV show called Star Wars Visions. Are any of you aware of it?
Yeah.
It's an animated show.
Isn't literally every fucking story got a female lead?
So it's 9 episodes. Episodes are around 15 minutes. It's a different story. It's a different animated style. So you have Aardman animation, it's clay animation. You've got some, CG animation, some 2D stylized animation. All the animation styles are different. Every single story, not a joke. I binged all the episodes. Every single story features a female protagonist on the light side who confronts an antagonist who mostly is male, not in every episode. And it's them that particular female character rebelling or doing a good thing or whatever. All 9 episodes are the exact same. Female protagonist overcoming an evil dark side antagonist, male or female, mostly male, but every protagonist is a female in all 9 episodes. It's utterly ridiculous to just, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, well, the next one, I'm on the 4th episode. The next one is definitely going to be, they're going to mix it up, at least to be different. Nope. All 9. It was bizarre. It was almost like that was the mandate for every episode. And it just, I don't know.
Well,
it felt weird.
Is it literally like the band on the Titanic, and like the ship's sinking beneath the waves, and they're like, fuck it, we can just play whatever we want now because no one's gonna care anyway. Like that seems to be the mentality now. It's like, well, all this is about to come crashing down, so we might as well shove as much of this garbage into like our productions as we can. That really seems to be what they're doing here.
Well, there seems to be drinker. There seems to be a corporate justification for this. Is that increasingly in the United States, women are becoming the main breadwinners of families. So that is a trend. I'm not saying that's, I'm just saying it is a trend. And so the justification is, well, women like things with women in it, so we'll just put women in everything. I disagree with that. I think that the reason a lot of women became fans of Marvel was because, frankly, of all the beefcake, if you go back to early Marvel phases, the early phases of Marvel, every single male character had to take their shirt off. It's a trope, right? I mean, everyone did it. Including Benedict Cumberbatch took his shirt off. They all do that. And I think, when you look at even the first Avengers movie, I mean, it might as well have been a Chippendales show in superhero costumes, right? Like all of these attractive men. I think that women are attracted to strong men. I don't think that's a radical thing to say in any circle. Some would argue, but that is why I believe there are so many female Marvel fans. And by female Marvel fans, I mean fans of the movies. And now that they've tried to desexualize, everything these days, it's weird. It's almost surprising when I see a movie now and there's a romantic sort of subplot, and I'm like, wow, that really stands out because you don't see it very often. Or a woman dresses remotely sexy, which I think we'll see in the Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise. There's certain things that just resonate. I don't know. It's in our lizard brains, right? But for some reason, people are trying to reprogram things in a way. I know, Eric, I know you have a lot of thoughts on that. So, but seeing it like happen before our eyes is just bizarre.
It's a weird misbalance, like you say, because I fall in the camp of sexualize both genders as and when it's appropriate. Have guys with their shirts off, like, because they've spent all that time at the gym. Sure, okay. But give us a little bit of cleavage or something occasionally. It's not a fucking crime against humanity to do that. But it's like you get these weird, unbalanced like dynamics where like the women are all wearing these shapeless fucking covered up suits where they're just like you can't see a single thing, and it's like they don't even have muscles to show off. So like they've just kind of got nothing. They're just like amorphous blobs on screen. And so I don't really know what they're going for there. I don't understand how they can justify it or what they're trying to achieve with it. But it doesn't make for very compelling viewing, put it that way.
That's for fucking sure. It's just bad content, man. It's yeah, like I said, these people that are in the creative positions are convinced these companies to hire them so that their material will be put out there for the public to be customers of or reject or whatever. They have a vision of what they want the world to be. And I think they create content that is more representative of that, as opposed to making content for an audience that will willingly buy. I mean, we see this in the comic industry now. I hate to keep referring back to it, but it's something that I can make most personal to me because I see it and keep up with it so often. But where you get people that are making books that are, who the fuck are they wrote for outside of themselves, right? If this person is writing it so that they can, that's why they take characters that people recognize, but sometimes it's even with a character that they deem as new, and it's just, hey, I can read your book and I can guess the makeup of the person that fucking wrote it. You know what I mean? Because they have the similar ilk, because they're not doing it for the audience, they're not doing it for the customer. And I think just being genuine businessmen, hell, I think it's got to the point to where when they do see someone like that, like myself, who just simply says, you know what, I'm gonna make something for an audience that's already fucking there, they act like it's a damn crime. So it's why you had so many people, even though I guess I made or I committed the crime of just creating my own fucking comic book company, and I've got more backlash doing that shit than I've got with the mild and hot takes that I've had over the years, because these people don't know what it looks like anymore. They look at it more so like, fuck who the audience is. We need the audience to be a certain type of person. So our material needs to be reflective of that. It doesn't matter if so everything's looked at it like you have to. It's more of what you prove. It's why Viola Davis can say what she says about Woman King, because it's like, you need to prove that you're good enough. You need to prove that you're good enough to buy this material, as opposed to, I'm the creative, I need to convince you as the customer to reach in your pocket and voluntarily give me money to purchase to be a customer of. They don't look at it like that anymore. They're making shit for themselves, and more importantly, and maybe Chris can speak to this as well, for their peers, right? To get thumbs up from the people that they're around, less about the customers and more about impressing again their peers and people that, I don't know, to get cosigns and box checking and weird shit like that.
Well, I will say that there's clearly that content is made for specific demographics. They tend to go for demographics that make money, that are identifiable demographics. I had a friend who actually worked at Disney in the marketing department, and they used to have these big charts up on the walls. They would call them Disney dads or Disney moms, and they would actually have like how they spent money as a way to kind of drill into everyone who worked there. These are the people we're going after. Oddly, these big charts were under a type of glass that you couldn't photograph it. You actually could not take a picture of it, so it would not leak from Disney. But where a lot of this started, or at least I started to notice it, was the television show Lost. I went to a television conference sponsored by the WGA, and they talked about how revolutionary Lost was, because they were under surveying people when it came to like Nielsen's. They were under surveying certain types of people. So what they found was, with the TV show Lost, which, think back to like the first season of Lost, is a very, very organically, I felt, diverse show. They weren't promoting it as being a diverse. It just was organically different. I mean, you had a couple in there. There was a Korean couple that spoke Korean with, subtitles, right? It was a very international show. But what they found was that they discovered all these demographics who bought things. Now, what did they buy? The same kind of things that people always buy, right? Detergent, cars, nothing revolutionary, but they were under surveying certain demographics, even though, frankly, these demographics all buy the same shit. So but they thought it was like this revolution. Like, look at this. We're having so Lost, for its time, not that nothing diverse existed before that, but they so-called, quote, discovered this, right? And so that changed a lot of things with regard to advertising and surveying and breaking demographics down. Politicians love to do this. They love to put people into buckets and groups so they can target a group, because this is what this group thinks. Well, maybe not, but everybody buys detergent to wash their clothes. So it's really weird how they look at ways to separate us when ultimately we're all, we're much more similar than we are different. But that was the thing where I first thought, it's like, oh, wow, they really care about this demographic stuff. It really is meaningful, and at least for the first season of Lost, I mean, I got caught up in it. I thought it was a very good show, and it went off the rails and did not.
I think the first couple of seasons, properly gripped by it. I think the writer's strike really crippled it, and then when you got to the point where they were time traveling and shit, that was just I was done with it. It just became a joke. But sure. I know that Chris and Eric, you guys have both got to jump off shortly because we're kind of out of time with you. I want to say thanks to both of you guys for coming on tonight. Like, always awesome to have you guys on the
yeah.
open bar. So thank you.
Appreciate you having
Thank
me,
you.
man. It's always fun.
Thanks for the invite. Thanks for the invite,
thanks,
Drinker. And just if I could plug my channel, Film Threat, subscribe. We do live streams twice a week. We are currently in the midst of a trial, Critics Court, which is Star Wars on trial. We're doing a mock trial, and we've got 9 charges where we are doing a trial, trying to prove that Disney Lucasfilm murdered the Star Wars franchise. And we'll be bringing on many of your favorite YouTubers. MauLer may or may not be interested in appearing on the show, but I hope you'll
He's
check
gonna be your
it out.
star witness right there.
Yeah.
They murdered me too.
No, the link to both Eric and Chris's channels are in the description. So please, if you haven't followed them already, give them a subscribe because they both produce amazing stuff. Great content creators. And yeah, thank you guys for coming on tonight, and we will hopefully see you guys back again sometime soon.
Anytime, man.
Absolutely.
Just hit me up, man. Let me know. I appreciate y'all as always. And man, it's always fun chilling with Chris. Like we cross over on a million different shows. This is always fun. But yeah, man, I appreciate all of y'all. I don't got anything to plug. Y'all know where I'm at, man. Just again, this is always fun, man. Y'all keep doing what you do.
All right, thanks, man.
Peace out, y'all.
Take care.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it's just the two of us, me and you, MauLer. We can do this. We can keep things going.
Hell yeah.
This seems like it'd be a pretty good time to do some super chats. What do you think?
I think that makes sense. When we have a look to see
Does.
what people are saying.
Alrighty, let's see what we got here. So, Cirrhosis of Liver, giving us the ultimate question. Rewatch all of Phase 4 or listen to a full audiobook of organized chaos, reading War and Peace while Tyrone nails his girl? Fuck.
Phase 4.
Yeah. I've heard about 3 minutes of that guy talking, and that was more than enough for one lifetime.
You get No Way Home in there. So, yeah. Have some
Yeah.
fun.
It says, also, what is each person's favorite movie monologue? So, what's your best monologue from any movie?
Oh, I've never
It's got to be Quint from Jaws, isn't it? That monologue about the Indianapolis. That's some good stuff.
Does
What do you think?
like theater and speech count, or was that?
That's not a monologue, MauLer.
But what if
that's
I
a
want
speech
it
to
to be?
Well, I mean, people don't talk back to him, so you could probably class it as a
I
monologue.
might be
I
able to get away
guess.
with it. What about Taken? Does that count?
Well, again, that's on the phone, isn't it?
Why can't it be on the phone?
Because it's a conversation. Do you need me to walk you through the principles of
The
what a
guy
conversation
doesn't
is?
talk back for the whole thing. He's scared. He's all like, "Oh my god."
Might I politely suggest Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York? That's a pretty good monologue.
Talk about the milkshake one.
No. That's There Will Be Blood.
Oh fuck.
No, it's the bit where Leonardo DiCaprio is he's just been injured and he's woken up and Bill the Butcher is sat right there.
I was so excited with that movie's awesome, by the way, but I really liked Brendan Gleeson when he sort of came into further focus in the plot, and then I say this like I'm not spoiling it. Go watch the movie. Something happens, and I was like,
If you haven't seen it, it's like 20 years ago. Come on, people have seen it by now,
you never
surely.
know.
Anyway, there was a question here as well. Where's the critical doggo? Both critical doggos are in a different room tonight. So, like, when they're not here, it's really difficult to move a greyhound once they've fallen asleep. Like, you know, it's like trying to move a dead body, and I've done that many times. Believe me, it's not easy. And so, like, I just couldn't bring them in here to set up the dog cam. So, apologies on my behalf. But next week they'll be back. Don't you worry. I'll shepherd them in here. Waylon Bicephas says bucket of lady aids or Peter Pan and Wendy. I think I'd take the aids, to be honest. Yeah. Mr. Lucas says thoughts on Baby Driver. As far as Edgar Wright movies go, I didn't like it that much.
Wasn't a huge fan of the story. Really liked the production on all of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, the cinematography and stuff, all fine. Yeah, it's just story's a bit weak. I didn't really care for like Baby as a protagonist. I thought he was kind of boring. Waylon Bucephus says, I was going to ask if you could turn back time, but I don't think it would work very well for Mr. July. Really? Worst form of torture, The Last Jedi or Captain Marvel? I think I'd probably rather watch Captain Marvel than The Last Jedi.
Yeah, because, you know, it's mostly about how shit she is as a character, but you don't really care about her because she's new, at least for the MCU.
Yeah. Marksman of 117B says, teddy bears or unicorns? Pick your genocide. I'd go for teddy bears, I think. He also says, in their original myths, unicorns were the most evil and vicious of animals. They were not loved but feared as the embodiment of nature's wrath. Yeah, I mean, that ties into Shazam 2, I think, where unicorns are just total assholes. So, yeah, I can go with that. They just had good publicists, I guess, making us think they were beautiful.
One unfaithfully adapted them and it just took off, you know?
That's the problem, yeah. All it takes is one, and it starts the landslide. RRTNZ says, hail folks, moving past the schadenfreude of Disney's demise, let's be positive for a bit. What's the most recently made film that you all enjoyed?
What's that again?
I'm just going to let you.
Oh, yeah, say it again, just so I can think about it a little bit longer.
So, I mean, I can probably help out a little bit. The most recently watched film that I enjoyed was like a couple of days ago. I watched Sisu, and I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. It's just a crazy, ridiculous World War II action movie, and it was really fun and really violent, and I liked it. So, good movies are still getting made, and it was done on a budget of like 6 million euros, so pretty good.
Might be Boiling Point. I think that's the most recent really fucking good movie I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also saw In the Name of the King, which, you know, is that and Boiling Point sit on opposite ends, let's just say that.
That underappreciated Yui Bowl classic. Yeah, The Name of the King. God damn. Next one is Don Blackbird, who says Jedi Survivor is the best Star Wars story in the Disney era. Few moments of the message, but still solid. Gameplay is great too. They shipped it half-assed, but hey, modern gaming. Respawn Star Wars games worth the time. Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Not really into the Star Wars games, so I don't know. Joel Reus says, very off topic, but which one do you think was better? Picard Season 3 or Andor? I enjoyed Andor a lot more than Picard. MauLer, protect my opinion.
I haven't seen Picard Season 3 fully, and I can't appreciate it as much as someone like Drinker can, because I haven't seen TNG. So
yeah, I love how he just sides with you immediately, like, MauLer, help me out. It's like, Drinker, what the fuck am I, like chopped liver or something?
Drinker likes Andor, you know? Like...
I'm just sitting here in the corner drooling, like, useless. Having seen Andor and Picard Season 3, which one is better? Ooh. It's a tricky one because I feel like Andor might be better written, but Picard Season 3 is it's got the nostalgia factor and it's got the fan service and it really plays into that, and it's gonna be able to, you know, squeeze those member berries for the sweet juice within. So I think it was probably a better product overall. It's weird, like Andor's just got nothing going for it, has it? It's like it's a character no one cares about, set in a fucking Disney Star Wars universe that no one watches anymore. It's buried on a streaming service that no one's interested in. The only thing it's got going for it is that it's actually a pretty well written, well produced show. Like the things that should actually matter.
It's so funny because that's actually perfect for Star Wars back in around, I would say, post Rogue One is probably the last time they could get away with it, where they could release anything to do with Star Wars and it'd be fine.
Yeah,
it's so interesting to compare it to the MCU, isn't it, or Marvel? Because the Star Wars brand is just in trouble, especially now. They've wasted all of their shots, and something like Andor could have gotten them publicity if they'd released it. Which I think, by the way, that was probably somewhat of an original plan. Like to pair it with Rogue One would have made way more sense.
Yeah. It would have been much better. It would have capitalized on the momentum. It would have been a great way to kick off the Disney Plus TV shows. Like, that come out first. Like, damn, that could have set the tone for something really interesting.
Imagine it came out alongside TFA as just a show, and then Rogue One came out after they'd finished the show. We'd be like, wow. No, I think we'd all be in favor of Rogue One a little bit more if we had all of Andor backing it, even if it's not, very good or whatever.
Yeah. It's just weird, these creative, like, dead ends that franchises embark upon, Like, all these, like, different things that could have been, that might have taken us down really interesting paths, and it's just like they never really got to be. But hey, you must be excited for The Acolyte, right? That's going to be a good show.
These days, it's like, fans of mine telling me, like, hey, they poke me with a stick, like, there's a new Star Wars, and I'm like, oh. Are you sure? And they're like, yeah, but to be fair, that's how I ended up seeing Andor, was enough people telling me to go watch it, so,
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance, I guess. Johnny Zed says, "Salutations, Drinker and MauLer. I've got a murderer's row at the open bar today. Should be a great show as usual. Cheers." Well, hopefully it was. I mean, we did our best, Unhinged says, "It's open bar. Get the jug of KY because you don't want MauLer going in dry." I mean, okay. I guess you don't, really. Kedge says, "Greetings to all. Have you heard about Bob Iger congratulating Universal for the Mario movie's success? Makes me glad that Nintendo didn't work with Disney to make the movie or have control of their IPs." Yeah, good God, imagine if Disney had been in charge of that one.
It just sounds like the kind of thing where it's like, you guys did really good, and they're like, yeah, thank you, and he's like, yeah, so got any other ideas you got in the pipeline?
Yeah, because we are all
out.
Angel Flyer says, "What are everyone's thoughts on Carl Urban potentially playing Johnny Cage in the Mortal Kombat sequel? Cheers to everyone and have a lovely day." Christ, isn't he a bit old for that?
Ah, fuck it, whatever. It's Carl Urban. Fix him up in post, and yes.
Yeah. Michael C says, "Greetings, Drinker, MauLer, and guests. Hope your week is going well. At this point, as far as Disney remakes go, I'm just glad that The Hunchback of Notre Dame hasn't been torched yet. Give it time."
Give it time, yeah.
That's what we always say. Kyle Two Shoes says, "Hey, Drinker, who would win in a fight, the Friday Night Tights gang or the entire cast of the Eternals?" Friday Night Tights would wipe the fucking floor with those pussies.
To be fair, the Eternals cast can bring people back to life. That's one of their powers. So, they'll be like zombies at one point. But I think the FNT guys can take that.
Yeah, I would say so. Yes, the Eternals are literally saving lives, but I think the FNT guys could crush them ultimately. So yeah. Kevbot says, "Drinker, glad you started It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Thank you. Finally got onto it. Brilliant show. The creators have 2 movies coming out, Fool's Paradise and Blackberry." Nice. Yeah. I've got like 15 seasons or something to get through. Like, there's a lot of that show, but it's good. It's pretty funny.
I have recently started up a new favored show, and can't do anything but recommend it full-heartedly. That Succession thing I was talking about, getting further and further, and it's getting more and more addictive. I'm starting to get, when you start up a show that's like got several seasons, but in this case it's got 4. It's like, it's a lot of show. At this point, I'm already like, I wish there was more, because I'm already running out. It's not looking good.
Yeah, I'm almost finished Tulsa King. I got 1 more season of Yellowstone to watch, and well, yeah, like I've heard nothing but good things about Succession, so
I think you'd like it.
Yeah. Case the Haste says, "I wonder why they haven't made a Pocahontas remake yet. Diverse female lead, white colonialists are bad guys. Sounds like a modern Disney movie." Yeah, again, like we said before, give it time. They will absolutely remake that for sure. Rini Guy says, "Shout out to the 199. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice one. Matt Bailey says, "It's my little girl Maeve's first birthday. Obviously, she's a huge fan. Will she have any new good Disney to watch growing up?" Well, no. Her childhood is going to be bleak, horrible, and nightmarish as far as entertainment goes. Yeah. Please just don't show her modern stuff. Just give her the classic Disney animated movies and she'll be really happy.
I think we've talked about this before. I know I have with Fringy, but I was growing up and watching those animated films. I thought they were new. I thought they were like not that old. I had no idea that they came from like decades prior. So if you needed that as a sign of what's timeless, you'll be fine. Just check them out. Check out kids love them. There's a reason for that.
Absolutely. And happy birthday to your daughter, Maeve. Casey Boyd says, as an anime fan, I can't find many good reviewers on YouTube. There's a market for you guys to come in and provide objectivity. To start, maybe a Cowboy Bebop video, Drinker, or an OPM Session 1, EFAP, MauLer.
I'm not against. This is gonna fucking send people to the moon now. I'm not against doing videos on some anime. I actually really like. I want to do something on One Punch Man season 1. The only problem with that, of course, is that I haven't watched season 2 yet. I only ever hear from basically everybody that you should avoid it because it's disappointing. And I was like, but it's kind of hard to, review a show without avoiding seasons of the show. You know what I mean?
Just watch the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched, I think, most of Cowboy Bebop, because after the diabolical live action stuff on Netflix, I was curious to see what spawned it, and I watched it, and I was like, yeah, this is really cool. Like, Faye Valentine is a really cool, quirky, interesting character in this. What the hell went wrong? So yeah, that could be a good one to review. AJ Matheson says, Hail Drinker, MauLer, and the rest of the bar. Brogue check, purple burglar alarm. Cheers. Well, I said it. There you go.
Yeah, you did it.
I had to slow down slightly. Cody Griffin says, off topic, but I recently watched No Country for Old Men with my lady and 310 to Yuma, the newish one. I sincerely wanted to know your thoughts on those movies. I mean...
I adore No Country for Old Men. I happened to see that about 2 weeks ago. I showed Fringy it. It's a fucking brilliant film. And there's a particular vibe they capture in that. The Coens, a lot of people struggle to define it as a genre, that one. Some people say Western.
It's like a Western noir or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
they created a villain with an incredibly unique and fucking striking sort of presence, which is not easy to do. Anton Chigurh's gone down now as one of the greatest villains in history, and the points that film makes about just the transition of eras and incredibly subversive storytelling to the point where people will give it a fucking 1 out of 10 because they were enjoying it so much and they wanted to see the thing. Everyone wants to see a particular ending to that film, but you don't get it. I love it. I think it's brilliant. As for 310 to Yuma with Christian Bale and Russell Crowe, I like it. I enjoy that movie. It's fun. It's good stuff.
No, I'm not inclined to disagree on either of those points, really. Peaceful Viewer says, since you got into Boiling Point, can I recommend The Bear for you to watch? I think you would enjoy it. The Bear, okay.
Is there a connection?
Yeah, would be interested to know. Let's see. Let's see if it's a new
Maybe
movie.
same maker.
So there's quite a few different versions of it. There's one from 2022 and 2023. So let's see this one. The Bear. This is a TV series. Okay. A brilliant young chef from the fine dining world is forced to return home to run his family's sandwich shop. Okay, that could be it then, I guess. Yeah, I know they're apparently making a TV version of Boiling Point as well, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with that.
Bringing back all the same actors as well, as far as I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's going to be as far as I know, it's going to be so to speak, an adaptation of the film, but into TV instead.
Okay. Doesn't that kind of do away with the point of it if it's episodic then?
That's a good point, but I think you can move things around to make that work. It could be tough, but hey, I will give them a hell of a shot after what I saw in Boiling Point.
Dipshit McGee says, that's a good name. Hail Drinker, watching from a plane. Thoughts on Tron Legacy or Tron as a Disney property? Seems like it had potential, but it was underused. Yeah. Love the original Tron. Tron Legacy. I always feel like I'm missing something with that movie, but I'm I just don't feel like it added so much to the narrative that I really needed to see it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I watched it, I was yeah, technically it's impressive. It's nice to see Jeff Bridges back and stuff, but I'm just I don't really know what I was supposed to take from that film.
I mean, I've always wondered if it maybe came out at the wrong time or something, because a lot of people labeled it the TFA before TFA for a different IP. It has a lot of similar beats. I think that Will Batoon said that the whole thing was stolen for Quantumania. He's spotted a lot of similarities, which are totally fair points. I don't remember thinking it was bad or anything. I remember enjoying it. I think I'm similar to Drinker. I don't I don't have a lot in my memory files for that one.
Yeah. Casey Boyd says, Drinker, a couple of episodes are removed from streaming on It's Always Sunny. Thank you for censorship. I'm amazed that you just started the show. It's great. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm very behind the times on that one. It passed me by for many years, but I'm finally getting into it. And yeah, I see what I'm missing. It's very good. And he also asks, have you guys seen Trailer Park Boys? I haven't, I'm afraid. I don't know if MauLer has.
I have not.
Tinso says, have you seen the movie Sling Blade from 1996? I feel like I
No.
have. Like the name brings up a memory. I'm just going to see who's in it, and that'll tell me if I've seen it or not. Okay, so it's an American drama film directed by Billy Bob Thornton. Okay, so it's got. Yeah, I think he's the main one. No, I don't think I have seen that one actually. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Yeah. Next one is Istari Azul says, how do you all think Captain Marvel and Eternals would have been if James Gunn had directed and Katie Sackhoff was cast as Captain Marvel? Second super chat ever. Thank you very much.
It'd be better.
Yeah, I was going to say it would have been like infinitely better. Katie Sackhoff, I think, would have been an interesting choice. Possibly might have been a bit too old to play Captain Marvel, but I think she could...
with James Gunn, I find as a creator, is he's never made anything that like bored me or confused me. I understand what he's trying to achieve every time I watch his stuff. He's just got different levels of results each time, and something he has that I really fucking wish more writers did was just they put a lot of heart into this stuff to the point of taking risks. I quite like it when you got some very raw emotions happening.
Yep. No, that's always good. Remember when you used to get emotionally invested in characters and conflicts and stuff? That was nice. I like that. James Norman says 4 movies that defined my childhood: Spider-Man, the 2002 one, Batman Forever, Back to the Future, and Bulletproof Monk. That is an eclectic mix there, sir. God damn.
I remember Bulletproof Monk.
So do I. It was Sean William Scott and
yeah.
Chow Yun-fat, I think. That the thing that always I always thought about that film, especially in the early stages, it's like the dialogue was so weird and disjointed because it was like what one person was saying to another person had no connection. It's like they were having 2 different conversations. I don't know how they wrote the script for that. But yeah, it was an odd little film. John Everett says, Hail Drinker, MauLer, and your valiant crew. Have one on me. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Casey Boyd says, I think Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is the strongest overall film of the 3, but Guardians 2 has the best individual scene, in my opinion. The one with Rocket and Yondu on the ship.
Interesting, because I actually thought you were going to go for the Drax and Mantis one. But if you remember, that's one of my favorite scenes in the MCU where he's talking about his daughter, but he's pretty chill. He's like, because he's just normal, and then she touches him, and she's already set up that she can feel what people are feeling. And then she starts like bawling her eyes out. Patient being that's the pain he has, and he just sort of, he keeps on going.
Why don't I remember that?
Fucking great scene. There's loads of really good ones.
I feel like, when I think about Guardians 2, I'm just like, Kurt Russell had a big beard in that movie. And
he did.
I liked him.
I liked him.
That's pretty much it. I need to rewatch it, clearly. Astro Nerd Boy says, I don't understand why Disney has all but stopped putting stuff onto BD. What's BD?
ED.
Blu-ray disc. It seems like money left on the table to try to force streaming subscriptions. Well, that's the problem. Yeah, when it's on streaming, it's like you can access it at any time, and it just kind of loses its uniqueness.
I sometimes feel like it's like, what would you know? You don't fucking run a company, and it's like, okay, but listen, when I'm like on Netflix, and I'm like, you know what? I just spotted fucking, let's just say 310 to Yuma, and I'm with a friend. I'm like, we can watch that, and then some company guy's sitting there like, wait a minute, you own that on Blu-ray. How could you possibly watch it on streaming? I'd be like, well, I mean, it's just I like having it, and then also, just click at it with convenience. Do you not understand how that works? And he's like, whoa. And I'm just like, is it really that much of a fucking money pit to generate Blu-rays? Does it cost you subscribers? I fucking doubt it.
Yeah.
I don't know what this
It's a
logic
weird one.
is, but again, I don't run a company. Maybe there's something I don't know about how this makes it make complete sense. It's like, all right, but
I mean, I guess there's got to be economies of like production and stuff that we're not quite aware of, but yeah, it's
also
it's
season 18 of Simpsons was released on, I think, DVDs and stuff, and then that was the last one. They stopped, and they just went to, I think, put it on streaming and stuff, and then the fans complained loud enough that they started releasing them again. I think they got to 22. I'd have to check, and they stopped again. That happening makes me wonder. I'm just like, so was it profitable? Was it not? Or was it something else? Like, what?
yeah.
Why do you stop? You could release the collector's editions and have like 30 million DVD discs or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's a weird one. Happy birthday, Polly says, Mr. July, your annihilation of chaos was absolute catharsis. Sorry he took some shots at you again. Any chance of a round 2? I wish I could get Eric's take on that, actually. Also, High Drinker and Longman. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Derek says, what's the most traumatic scene that you can remember from a horror movie? For me, it's the part in Deep Rising where they shoot open the monster's tentacle and a half-digested guy falls out. That's Jason Fleming. I remember that.
Oh, Jason Fleming? Oh.
It is, yeah. It's like he's getting digested by the stomach acid and he kind of melts in front of them.
There's something similar to that in the remake of The Thing. I say the remake, whatever it was, the sequel make.
Oh, the prequel thingy, yeah.
Prequels, yeah, pre-make. So, there's a lot to choose from, which makes it difficult.
It's not even a horror movie, right? But I always thought this was just really horrible way to go. It's like a movie called Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones, right? And there's a bit in the subway where, like, basically a volcano erupts like underneath LA, and so
I know
like
what you're talking about.
the subway like starts to fill with lava, and like they're trying to evacuate people from this train, and one guy has got a dude on his back, and he has to like jump off the train and throw him to like some rescuers, but like he lands in the lava and just kind of fucking slowly melts into it, and it just seemed like, ugh, that's a horrible way to go. Like, it's so slow, you know.
I remember that actually. Yeah. I've seen people mention it, so I should probably bring it up. It's again not a horror movie technically, but I don't know if it's considered like a Western horror. Bone Tomahawk, that has one of the most.
Oh yeah.
Kills in that that one was incredibly memorable, so that's got to be the metric you'd go with. Some people mentioned Hereditary. Did you see that?
Hereditary. No, I don't think I have seen that one actually. No.
There's a death in that that's particularly memorable. But yeah,
can you tell me, or it's like?
Well, I wouldn't. It's kind of a huge spoiler, and I don't know if it's hard to say I'd recommend it, but I wouldn't mind hearing what you have to say about it. It's a very strange movie.
All right. I'm looking to see the ones in the chat, because it's like sometimes you'll see it and be like, oh shit, I forgot about that one. Like that's an awful one. What have we got here?
Oh yeah, I guess Kane in Alien. That's actually a really good shout.
Yeah, I mean that's it's pretty bad.
This is pretty bad.
It's I think as well, like the one in Aliens where it's like they come across a woman who's like just like pinned into the wall, and like the same thing happens, but it's like it's almost worse because she can't even like struggle or move or anything. It's like she's just kind of stuck there while it happens, and it's like, ugh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think Kane was a quick death. I mean, I don't call that quick. Relatively speaking, it's quicker than like the guy who died in that lava scene that you were talking about, but it's not as quick as a bullet to the head. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, someone else mentioned like the guy who gets sprayed with acids when they shoot one of the aliens and it kind of explodes on him, and it's like, yeah, again, it's almost like, how long is it going to take to kill you? Because if it's more or less immediate, then it's like, okay, fine. But like, if it might take minutes of like your face slowly melting off, like that's pretty horrible. Anyway, I'm going to end up dwelling on this for like the whole stream. I could make a whole stream about just like horrible deaths in movies,
We could do it.
John Thomas says, unrelated, but a guy adapted God Save the King from Charles's coronation to the Empire theme from Star Wars. That'd be amazing. Sent the vid to Az on the Graham Instant Classic, in my opinion. Yeah, that sounds good, actually. Marcelo Del Debio says, greetings from Brazil. I would like to recommend Maya and the Three, an action and animation for children with Aztec background, family and friendship values. Hidden gem I found by accident on Netflix. Never heard of Maya and the Three.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Neill says Disney's logic was to buy Marvel and Star Wars to increase male viewership. Disney's logic was also that they didn't need male viewers. Can't imagine why things aren't going well for Disney now. That's a pretty good way to sum it up, actually. James Crawford says, first time donation and long time watcher. Thank you. Thanks for providing brilliant content. I thought I should donate as tomorrow I will be closer to 30 than 20, so I feel I need to be more of an adult. God damn you with your young self. 25. I hate you. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Silk Crayfish says, interest level is determined by MauLer's dentist. What?
What was the first half of that?
Just says, interest level is determined by MauLer's dentist.
Oh, I remember. Well, because I said that even my dentist was complaining about the ending of Game of Thrones. It was
Okay.
It's like the dentist could be a good gauge on like how things are going in the world.
No, that's fair play. I like the idea as well of your parents like watching movies and like you can just get their like unfiltered takes on things. What was it your dad had seen recently where he was like, "This is fucking stupid, isn't it?"
Are you still contemplating it?
Yeah, okay, that was it.
But like, it's and Exodus Gods and Kings. I watched a bit of that with him, and he was just like, "What? It's just so fucking." And yeah, you have to imagine some of the time they do testing with audiences. Like, what the fuck would the audience have said about MODOK when they first showed them that? What would they say? Like, "Oh, this is great. Yeah, this is just great. Good job, guys."
Arthur Brown says, Ripper shot drinker's dog. No, he's just not here right now. That's all it is. He'll be the critical doggo, or both of them potentially, will be back for next open bar. Pie Master says, random off-topic question: why in Obi-Wan Kenobi did they hang the Jedi on Tatooine and not take him back to get popsicled like all the others? Cheers to all. Keep up the good work. Well, that's the mystery of Kenobi. Yeah,
I actually have no idea.
It's just fucking retarded. That's the reason. Davish says, hey drinker, long time viewer, first time super chatter. Well, there's always a first. Just wanted to say thanks and hail to the fellowship tonight. Cheers. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. OMG Puppy says, in The Power, women become dominant because they can electrocute people. It would be epic if it accurately showed how women would behave and what would happen to society. That seems like such a shit concept for a show. From what I've heard, it's like...
So they're in power?
Yeah, so basically, like, you know, the idea that, like, you could be domestically abused or whatever doesn't really work anymore because, like, the woman, like, you know, say her partner is abusive or aggressive, she can just electrocute him, just like, you know, Palpatine, Force Lightning and stuff.
Okay.
So then what does that do to them? But, like, I would imagine as a writer, you could actually have a lot of, like, fun with that. Or you could explore some interesting ideas of like what happens when people who are kind of historically used to being like perhaps the physically smaller and weaker gender suddenly find themselves with like overwhelming power. Like, would it go to their heads? Would they abuse it? You know, might they start fighting amongst themselves? Who knows? I just imagine that the show will not make good use of that concept, and it will just be like, yeah, they're amazing, and you know, everyone else just needs to deal with that. But hey ho. Blue Team Epsilon says, hi Drinker and Co. Have you heard the news about how Cal from the Star Wars Jedi games is problematic for not being diverse enough despite being the only white guy in the entire game? Well, you know, he's got to be erased in that case.
Isn't he a ginger? That's got to count for something.
That's just painting a target on his back, really, isn't it? When you've got that. Shaka, when the walls fell, says, when we get to a remake of a reboot of a reimagining of an adaptation of a remake, then we're really in trouble. We're not far off, believe me. Scott Ski says, I swear Disney is going to do an LA remake of Home on the Range within a year or two. Actually, I'm surprised they haven't already. Well, like we said, it's probably queued up and their script's getting worked on right now. And I'll do one more. Nicholas Keffer says, Drinker, you've revealed your drinking secret with your Peter Pan review. It's all that fairy dust. Yeah, it was excellent. Second, even after knowing Sargon, do you still think Starship Troopers is a fascist movie? Yes. That's the point of the film.
Wow,
It's glorifying
you
a
need
sort
to
of
you need to talk to Sargon about that one. He'll rip you apart.
we could have a good conversation, I'm sure. There's some interesting insights into like the political philosophies behind even just voting and stuff and what it actually means, what it signifies within within the Starship Troopers universe and like how it maps onto our world. It's interesting stuff. There's good conversations to be had, but ultimately I'm right. Anyway, I think Paul Verhoeven did a great job with that movie. But yeah, I guess we'll kind of stop there because there's still more super chats to get through, but I think we'll do it on our catch up stream.
Sure.
But thank you, all of you, for joining us tonight. Thank you for all these lovely super chats and your generosity. As always, is very much appreciated. I thank you to Eric July and Chris Gore who joined us tonight. As I say, the link to their channels is in the description. So if you're not following them already, then please give them a follow because they do really good stuff. But I think that's pretty much all we got tonight. Anything else from you, MauLer?
Saturday we're probably not gonna do EFAP for several reasons. One of them being that's the Wings and Boogie boxing fight.
Oh shit, is that on this weekend?
Apparently, so we're gonna see about whether or not we're allowed to, cover it. I don't know how it works. But you might get an EFAP mini on that. But what you'll get instead of a full line episode is going to be the final Mandalorian episode, which has been a nightmare to get through copyright. I've literally, as we were talking, I'm rendering another copy because I'm trying to get it to fucking go through. But that is an episode where Drinker joins us. So you can see that on Saturday. Hopefully I can get it done by then. And this week we won't be having an EFAP stream because, well, I'm going to be a little interested in checking out a certain boxing match.
I think that's going to be at least 30 seconds of pure joy before one of them fucking keels over.
I don't know what's going to happen. It could be the most boring thing ever, right? Like they both enter the ring, one of them swings, one of them goes, stop, and then they just end it. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know.
I think it'd be a funny one without. Where can you see it? Like, who's streaming it? And
so, as far as I know, it's streaming on YouTube. And the reason why we weren't going to stream it, restream it, is because I don't know if that's okay. I don't know what'll happen. I don't know if we could get striked for that. So we'll probably record us watching it, and then I'll put it up with copyright protection if needed or not. But yeah, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. So I imagine people will be tuning in.
I can't wait to see the excellent boxing techniques that are going to be on display there. It's going to be amazing. All right. Well, anyway, that is all we've got for today. So, go away now.
Bye.